Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the master in Dakshineshwar. So we will find that in the last class we were discussing the idea of the universality of all religions as discussed, as has been propounded by Sri Ramakrishna. In a very strong way he was advocating that all sorts of religious bigotry has to be forsaken if we want to have a world which speaks of peace, harmony in the present world. That's the message of Sri Ramakrishna, which we find is very, very significant. So we will find that Sri Ramakrishna is continuing with that discussion from the various other perspectives too. So now we will find that he is relating to the devotees the parable of the elephant and the blind man. So let us read from the Gospel what that story is. You all know that once some blind men chanced to come near an animal that someone told them was an elephant. They were asked what the elephant was like. The blind men began to feel its body. One of them said the elephant was like a pillar. He had touched only his leg. Another said it was like a winnowing fan. He had touched only its ear. In this way, the others, having touched its tail or belly, gave their different versions of the elephant. Just so, a man who has seen only one aspect of God limits God to that alone. It is his conviction that God cannot be anything else. So, this is a wonderful concept which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. It actually speaks of the meaning of the word darshana. That we speak of Shara Darshana, 6 philosophies. They're the main philosophies. The Indian philosophies, the Vedic philosophies, there are 6. Shara Darshana, this Sankhya, Nyaya, Yoga, this Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa. So these are the 6 philosophies. That's what we loosely translate. We say, just equating it with the Western philosophy, we say it is philosophy. But the word darshana is very important. Darshana is not exactly philosophy. Darshana means perspective, to see from a particular perspective. That though I say that the truth is such and such, I humbly accept the fact it is from my perspective. From other perspective, the same truth may appear as something. Unless and until I go beyond all bias and realize the truth as it is, as long as I am trying to relate to the truth with my mind from a particular vision of, from a particular angle of vision, my opinion, my view about the ultimate truth has to be biased. It can never be as such as it is full. It can never be. Just to give an example, here Sri Ramakrishna is giving an example of this elephant and the blind man. But To understand the meaning of the word darshana, let us take another example. That any building, suppose this our ashrama where I am sitting, if I take a photo, a picture, a photography of this ashrama from the east, if I take another photo from the west, another photo from the north, another photo from the south, it's a photo of the same building. But as I am taking from the different directions, I will find that all the 4 photos are different. So the angle of vision from which I am seeing it makes the difference, though it is the same building. I can never have the idea of the entire building from a particular perspective. So you will find very interesting, the word darshana means that my angle of vision, the perspective from which I am looking at the truth. Darshana. In Sanskrit, darshana means to see. So that speaks of the humility of all these philosophers. They accepted that they are viewing the reality from a particular perspective, so it can never be the wholesome truth. From that angle, of course it is true. From others' angle, that also is true what they are saying. So that's the idea which we find, again, as you indicated in this story. So yes, the story is about some of the blind men. That's the interesting thing, that they are all blind. That speaks of that they have not actually gone beyond the domain of their mind. From the domain of the mind, I am trying to relate to something which is beyond the mind. So that in that sense, spiritually I am blind. So with all my intellectual understanding, when I am trying to relate to the truth, it can never be wholesome, it can never be correct. It may be true to a certain extent, but it cannot be a wholesome truth. Again, we can relate to this apart from this idea of looking at the building from various angles. That's an example. And another example which we were reading in the last class. That suppose a man who has realized, like a man who has tasted the mango, he comes to a place where none have tasted mango. And he describes the taste of mango. What he describes? That it is sweet and it has a nice flavor. And everyone thinks they have understood, because those words are something with which everyone can relate with particular perceptions which they have. So they will try to relate those words with the available perceptions, and they think that I have understood. That someone, after hearing the word that mango is sweet and it has a nice flavor, someone may think, oh, mango is as sweet as honey, and it is having a nice flavor like the jasmine flower. So he has the available fund of experience. He has tasted honey, he has smelled the jasmine, and that's what the opinion he develops by hearing those words. Someone may think, no, it is as sweet as the molasses, and it has a nice fragrance of a rose. So you will find these varied opinions. Why? All are trying to relate to the word with their available fund of experience, with their bias. From the particular bias, they're looking at the truth. So it can never be the wholesome truth. It can be, we can say, a partial reality, or that it in no way speaks of the ultimate reality at all. So only when you go to the realization, then only can you know that wholesome truth. As Sri Ramakrishna in some other context used to say, that all the darshanas are like what? It's like hearing at the sound of the marketplace from a long distance. From a long distance, what you hear is just a humming noise. No distinct sound you can hear. It is just a humming noise. The more you go near the market, there you find that what all are shouting. The vendor is calling the price, the customer is bargaining, all those things I can hear the more I am near the market. But from a distance, it is just the humming noise. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying that all these darshanas are like those from a particular perspective, I'm looking at the truth. It is a partial truth. It's as I'm distant, I'm far away from the truth, it is at the most like a humming noise. It never gives me the knowledge of the real conversations that's going on in the marketplace. So many examples that all actually speaks of the same truth. That we can never say that my opinion is correct, yours is wrong. As long as we don't have no realization, all opinions are mere beliefs. It's just faith. Have anyone realized, as Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel in some other context will mention, that there was a Pandit who was quite humble, Padducharan, and what he used to do? That he, in some Pandit Sabha, in some king's, in the congregation of the king, where many scholars came, and the discussion on the various aspects of divinity was going on, that who is great, whether Vishnu is greater or Shiva is greater, all these discussions was going on. And this Padducharan, when he was asked, he told, neither me nor my forefather, anyone has either seen Shiva nor have seen Vishnu. How can I say who is greater? It's all belief. Have you seen God? There's a thing with which the question Naren went to Sri Ramakrishna, that all what I find in all the scriptures, it's all just concepts. How can I understand that whether this concept is true or not? Have anyone seen God? Have realized it? That's the quest with which Naren went to Sri Ramakrishna. And we find a wonderful thing. That's the quest that Sri Ramakrishna himself had. When he started doing the worship of Mother Kali at Dakshineshwar, looking at the image of Mother Kali, the deity, the first question came, is she just a Pashanmai, Mrinmai, just she is made of clay or made of stone, or she is Chinmai, that she is the consciousness, the divine conscious principle which has been projected as the universe, as the scriptures speak of. Is she Chinmai or is she Mrinmai? Is she Pashanmai or is she Chinmai? The same question with which Naren went to Sri Ramakrishna. We find Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual quest starts with the same question. If God is, he has to be realized. As plain as that. What's the use of just having mere belief? All the fight in the world at present is just with the belief. When the one who says God is formless, it is a belief. The one who says God has a form, it's a belief. And as long as it's a belief, there is no question of superior and inferior. Belief is belief. So then, as we told, we were mentioning in the last class, when Naren was speaking to Sri Ramakrishna on some occasion and told that such and such faith is blind faith, Sri Ramakrishna laughed and asked Naren. He immediately asked, just in response to this Naren's remark, what Sri Ramakrishna told is interesting. Well, can you tell me which faith has eyes? Faith is blind. All the faiths are blind. So that's the idea. So that's actually spoken of here in this parable. That all faiths are blind, and that's why this parable is of the blind men. And they have just touched only a particular part of the elephant, and they think that's the elephant. The one who has touched its feet thinks it's to be like a pillar. One who has touched its the ears thinks it's to be like a billowing fan. So like that, as they have touched, they start thinking it as what they have, the feeling of that, just that much. But is the elephant the pillar, or is it the billowing fan? No. Is it mistake? It's wrong? No. It's correct as per that blind person's bias is concerned. A particular way of looking at his concerned, to a certain extent that is true. But it doesn't speak of the wholesome truth. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That why you fight? It's after all mere belief. That the belief is based on the background on which you were born, the belief system in which you were nurtured. All those makes your belief system. Why you just fight with that? So that's the intention with which Sri Ramakrishna is narrating this story. And then to the Goswami, how can you say that the only truth about God is that he has form? It is undoubtedly true that God comes down to earth in a human form, as is the case of Krishna. And it is true as well that God reveals himself to his devotees in various forms. But it is also true that God is formless. His indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. He has been described in the Vedas both as formless and as endowed with form. He is also described there both as attributeless and as endowed with attributes. Do you know what I mean? Satchidananda, again another beautiful example Sri Ramakrishna is illustrating. Satchidananda is like an infinite ocean. Intense cold freezes the water into ice, which floats on the ocean in blocks of various forms. Likewise, through the cooling influence of bhakti, one sees forms of God in the ocean of the Absolute. These forms are meant for the bhaktas, the lovers of God. But when the sun of knowledge rises, the ice melts, it becomes the same water it was before, water above and water below, everywhere nothing but water. Therefore, a prayer in the Bhagavata says, O Lord, thou hast form and thou art also formless. Thou walkest before us, O Lord, in the shape of a man. Again, thou hast been described in the Vedas as beyond words and thought. But you may say that for certain devotees, God assumes eternal forms. There are places in the ocean where the ice doesn't melt at all. It assumes the form of gods. So what is speaking of wonderful thing? That the fight which we find is going on in the world, that is actually baseless. They have not realized anything. Just on the belief the fight is going on. The fight should have been for the one who is on the verge of merging in the Absolute. Because the one who has merged in the Absolute, one who has realized the Absolute, he can say, yes, God is formless. And the one who has went into the Savikalpa Samadhi by meditating on the form of God, he can say, God has form. There the fight is something which has meaning, because they're speaking what they have realized. But what we are speaking is mere belief. But those who have realized what can in any way there can be a harmony, you'll find there they never fight, because they do realize that God is both formless and with form. Especially those who went to the highest realization by meditating on the form. When they really become perfect in their spiritual sadhana practices and have attained the state of illumination, for them there is no doubt that God is both form and formless. In a simple way we can, as so many times we have related that how that when meditating on the form your mind really becomes concentrated, then what happens? That form becomes a visualization for you. All other distractions falls off. That form becomes the ekachitta vritti. That becomes the ishta vritti. Now all I see is nothing but the projection of the mind. You know that at present when I am looking at the table is not out there. Something is out there which the mind perceives and then projects. The projection is the thing I see. If the mind can project something without perceiving something, then also it will be as vivid as the way I am seeing the table. If by closing my eyes, my visualization has become so intense that even without perception, my visualization is as intense. then what happens? I see the form. You may say, is it possible? Yes. In this world you will find those who have this mental problem like schizophrenia. They do see so many things. And they really relate to that. We don't see that. They will see that. Then, now the question comes, the big question comes. Then, is a spiritual practitioner who is having these visions, is something like schizophrenic? No. Why? Very interesting. Even in the life of Ramakrishna we will find. Very interesting. That Sri Ramakrishna, when he is going into Samadhi, he is relating to that transcendental aspect of the divinity. But when he is the normal plane, he knows that it is the normal plane of existence. There is a distinction between this normal plane and that plane. As he, through his spiritual practice, have gone to that state, he knows that it is only through the spiritual endeavor where he can free his mind from all distractions, it takes him to that realm of divine vision. This is one plane, that is other plane. But those who are schizophrenic because of some mental aberrations, problem, they cannot distinguish between the two. And that's the great confusion happens with them. But for a spiritually realized soul, they know that that's a different level of, altered level of consciousness. They never confuse between the two. This is one. And second, that the one who is hallucinating because of schizophrenia, he may speak something which is not true. The visions have nothing to do with this truth. But a man of realization, he is going to the visions, and if he says, God said me such and such thing, we find it is true. When Sri Ramakrishna comes from Samadhi and says, Naren will teach the world, later we find it's true. Naren's intelligence is more than Keshav. Even Naren was not believing. The future says yes. That the impact which Naren had compared to that Keshav's impact was just very, very local. Not only that, whatever Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that Sharat, another disciple, he has the capacity to rule, to administration, that he has a very cool temperament. One day Sri Ramakrishna sat on his lap. He was a young boy. It may appear awkward behavior, that an elderly man suddenly going and sitting on the lap of a young boy. He sat and then he told, I was just testing that how much capacity you have to bear load. Kotota bhar nite pare. Just see, he becomes the first General Secretary of the order. Swami Brahmananda, he used to say that he can run a kingdom. He becomes the first president. And they were all capable persons. And they were all young boys. They were in their teens when Ramakrishna is saying all those things. And the future we find that whatever he's speaking is true. How it happens? That they are not hallucinating and just speaking something which is false. All they are saying is coming to be true. So, why? Because their vision, that is also vision. That vision, first is through spiritual practice you are going there, so you know the difference between this and that. And second, whatever you have vision there speaks of the truth. Why? Because by cleansing your mind from all the biases, you have went to some realization. That realization becomes a framework of your visualization where you have reached by cleansing your mind. All the biases has fallen off. So whatever you see is something perfect. It is our bias which never allows us to see the truth as it is. That is, as in Vedanta, that give the very nice example. That suppose there is a stump lying in the corner of a park. In the twilight hours, a thief who is running away from the police thinks it to be the police. The police who is searching the thief thinks it to be the thief. The child who has to go back home after the evening, the play is over. He is in search of his mother, thinks that stump to be the mother. The mother who is waiting for the child thinks it to be the child. A lover who is waiting for his beloved thinks it to be the beloved. So what the bias distorts our vision. No one sees the stump as the stump because of the bias. But when these visualizations happen because of the cleansing of the mind, the biases has fallen off, all your attachment to the world has fallen off, because the more you go towards God, East, the West automatically falls behind. Your love for the divine, the framework through which you are trying to relate to the divine, that has enabled you to get rid of all the bias, all the attachments. All the bias comes from the attachments, has fallen. So whatever you are seeing from that perspective happens to be the truth. So this is a wonderful thing. But still it's a visualization. It's as vivid, because the entire world after all is a visualization. Why I say this chair is true here? It's not because really the chair is here. I don't know what it is here. It is just a consensus reality. All of us are hallucinating in the same manner. Anyone who comes here, sees the chair, he will say, yes, it is a chair. Even modern psychology will say that we are all hallucinating in the same way, and it has created a consensus. We all consent that it is the chair. But after all, it is just visualization. It is a projection of the mind. So how can I say that the one who through spiritual practice has gone to a level where he is visualizing the divine, it is false? If that is false, the world is false. If I say the world is true, that also is true. If I say that God is false, that I visualize, then the world is also false. So this is a very interesting. So we are going to that form which speaks of the truth. It's more truth. Why? Because all the bias has fallen off. Whatever you're relating to from that level speaks of a more wholesome truth. But again, there is a formless aspect. Why that? That by relating to that the divine in a particular form, when I meditate, my meditation has become so intense that it has resulted in that visualization. There's only eka vritti, one vritti. But the mind cannot stay in one vritti. If it becomes really intense, then the mind collapses. And it takes you to that formless aspect of the divine. As we have mentioned, that in this world, everything is flowing. That's why it is called samsara. Samsarate iti samsara. Everything is flowing. Why everything is flowing? Because there is polarity. In this world, everywhere we find polarity. Why water flows? Because there is a difference of level. Higher level to lower level. If both the levels are same, the flow of water will stop. Why current flows? Because there is a difference of potential. If both the ends have same potential, no current. So if anywhere in this world, polarity is there, and the polarity is because of that polarity there is this flow. Even the mind is constantly in a state of flow. The mind is mind because it is flowing. Why it is constantly, we will find it is jumping from thought to thought. In modern psychology, they say that we think about 60,000 thoughts per day. Can we just imagine? Constantly, it is jumping from thought to thought. So what a yogi, a spiritual practitioner, a devotee, has been capable of keeping the mind in one thought by intense meditation. And then what happens? The polarity has resolved. The mind is mind as long as the flow is there. The moment the polarity is resolved, that one thought, eka vritti, intense, that also highly intense, then the mind suddenly collapses. When the mind collapses, it is the mind that is projecting the conscious principle as the world of name and form. Just like a white light falling on the prism breaks into the spectrum. This world is the spectrum. The consciousness is like the white light, and the mind is like the prism. The moment by one thought, the mind collapses for the time being. The prism is no more there. The entire spectrum merges with that white light. And that's the formless aspect which you are relating to. So by holding on to the form, you have gone to that formless state. So for such a person, both are true. But here Sri Ramakrishna is saying a wonderful thing. But for some, God assumes eternal forms. There are places in the ocean where the ice doesn't melt at all. It assumes the form of quartz. What it is speaking? that we fight with the idea of God, whether it's form or formless. For us it is absurd, it is just a belief. For such a person who is a bhakta, for him that question of choice comes. Now Sri Ramakrishna used to say, it is just like the fish sports in whatever that in a river, the fish like to swim from one bank to the other. It is called bach khala in Bengali. So the one who has went to that formless aspect of reality, have realized that by holding on to the form, so for him, he will be sporting for some time in this, from one shore to the other. Why? Now, though the mind for now and then collapses, but the subconscious mind is full of that ekavritti. So it cannot stay in that state of nirodha, that restricted mind, for long. The ekavritti, the ishtavritti, the thought of God, that comes from the subconscious mind as a bubble and again breaks up on the mind. So again he relates to the form, but again that when that form becomes very intense, that one thought, again it takes him to that state of thoughtlessness. Now here comes the choice. The one who wants to get absorbed in the formless aspect of the divine will be meditating more and more to go into the state of thoughtlessness, the nirodha state. And that way, the samskara of nirodha will be concentrating his subconscious mind, washing away the ekavritti. A time will come, the ekavritti is washed away, and then there is no return. As Sri Ramakrishna says, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, if one continues for 21 days, his body will fall off. But who is a devotee? Here the come of choice comes, that someone has gone to that state, but he wants to, that his temperament is to enjoy the bliss of the divine. So he doesn't want to increase that nirodha vritti. He will, whenever the mind is tending to go to that thoughtlessness, again he will hold on to that one thought and come back to the realm of duality, so that he can enjoy the bliss of communion with the divine. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, I don't want to be sugar, I want to enjoy the taste of sugar. So the question of choice comes to him. If he is of devotional temperament, he will never try to go to the state of thoughtlessness again and again. Whenever he finds his mind is tending, he will again resort to the chanting of the name of God, or he will ask others and come down. He will find the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same thing. Whenever he is going into that state, again he is coming back. There is a nice discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking Ramananda that what's devotion, Ramananda starts with this rituals and all. He says that's not sufficient. Say something higher. Who says, yeah, meditation, higher. Just taking the name of the Lord, enjoying the bliss of communion with the divine. Beyond that, when he was about to say something beyond that, Ramananda was about to speak of the formlessness aspect of the divine. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately went and pressed his mouth. Don't speak of it. Don't speak of it. It's not that he's denying. He also knows there is a state beyond that. He also have realized. But he is a devotee. He has came down to this world to preach devotion. So don't go this. Come back. Don't speak of that. So now he will understand that for a devotee, what is happening? That he doesn't want to merge his mind in the absolute. For him, God has as if taken the crystal form, like a quartz. The ice, previously gave that example, nice example, that in the ocean, because of cold, in intense cold, the water becomes like glaciers. It takes a form. So bhakti is like bhakti is cold. It is the coolness of bhakti makes that water have some shape in the form of ice. And when there is strong sunlight, that glacier will melt and it become one with water. The same ice is becoming water. But here Sri Ramakrishna, after saying that, what he's saying? But for some devotee, God takes eternal form. He is no more just an ice, the glacier. He has become like quartz. That sunlight may fall on quartz, but it won't melt. It falls on ice, it will melt. So what it means? That the devotee doesn't want to merge in the absolute. He doesn't want to become sober. He wants to enjoy the taste of sober. So whenever the mind is merging in the absolute, he would again hold on to that thought and come back from that state. In the life of Ramakrishna also we find again and again that he used to instruct the devotees, instruct Holy Mother. When Holy Mother came to stay with Ramakrishna throughout the night, that's a wonderful thing. Holy Mother stayed for few months with Ramakrishna. And it was a wonderful relation. The same room, same bed they are staying. They're in the same bed at night. But how they are spending? Ramakrishna has instructed Holy Mother that when you see me in such and such mood, take the name of such and such God. That he is to go to this Bhava Samadhi, from where the mind will merge in the absolute. The Bhava Samadhi is to speak of what aspect of the divine in which he was meditating, and the intense meditation on that form will take him to that absolute. So if you take the name of that God, that from absolute again, it will hold on to that, because the subconscious mind is full of that ekavritti. It will again come back. Very interesting. We take the name of God to concentrate our mind, to take our mind up from distraction to ekavritti. And he is taking the name of God to bring it down from the state of formlessness to the form. So that's the difference. Wonderful thing. So that's for such. So now you will find the question of choice, whether to worship the God with form or formless, it is applicable only to in that state. But they won't fight, because they have seen both the shores of the phenomenon and the noumenon. The paradox is those who are far, far away from that realization, those who are just believers, they are unnecessarily fighting. The fight should have been there, but they never fight because they have related to both the aspects of that reality. So in the words of Ramakrishna, Shekhane shop shearer akra, all the fox howls in the same manner when they reach that realization. The mystics never fight. They know, but what they are saying, they have seen it, they perceived it. So that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that for devotee, he has as if taken the form of quartz, because the devotee never wants to merge his mind in the absolute. He always wants to taste the bliss of communion with the divine. So he always keeps his mind in this level of phenomenal existence, doesn't want to merge it into the absolute. So for him, God has as if taken the form of quartz. Even the jnana cannot melt it, because his devotion is so strong. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. And then Kedar, what it is saying, it is said in the Bhagavata that Vyasa asked God's forgiveness for his 3 transgressions. He said, O Lord, thou art formless, but I have thought of thee in my meditation as endowed with form. Thou art beyond speech, but I have sung thee hymns. Thou art the all-pervading Spirit, but I have made pilgrimages to sacred places. Be gracious, O Lord, and forgive these 3 transgressions of mine. So again the same thing, that though we know that the God as a formless aspect is true, but we use the form as a means to go to that state of absolute. And after going to that state, if I wish, I can just come down a little and stay in this phenomenal existence, not to relate to this world of phenomenal existence, but to be always in the communion with the divine. So a devotee knows that. So that's why he's saying that though God is formless, but I am meditating on the form of God. So it's a poetic way, aphoristic way of saying it. So please forgive me. The real meaning is that that I know that God as formless is true, but I resort to this form to go to that state of formlessness. So please forgive me that because I have to, as a kindergarten student, I have to resort to all these forms. So which may fall off when I go to that higher states of spiritual realization. Master, yes, God has form and He is formless too. Further, He is beyond both form and formlessness. No one can limit Him. Very interesting. That He is having form and He is formless, and He is beyond form and formlessness. Now what's very difficult to understand that what it's meant by beyond form and formlessness. Now when I say God has form, when I say God is formless, who is saying? My mind is saying. With the mind, I am trying to relate to the absolute reality, and I say God is form and God is formless. But when you are beyond mind, you cannot describe anything. You are just that what you are. To understand this idea, I will relate to another Ramakrishna's conversation with a devotee, most probably Girish Ghosh. One day he was asking him, suppose there are 10 pitchers full of water, and the sun is on the sky, and its reflection has fallen on the water of the pitchers. So now he asked that how many reflections are there, and that what all you see, that the sun and how many reflections. This I see the sun and 10 reflections. And then Sri Ramakrishna asked, I break one of the pitcher. Then what do you see? One sun and 9 reflections. So like that Sri Ramakrishna went on asking. At last only one pitcher is there. And then again Girish told there's sun and is one reflection. And now Ramakrishna says at last that the last pitcher, that also I break. What remains? And Girish immediately says only the sun. Immediately Sri Ramakrishna says you cannot say that. Unless the reflection is there, you can never know the existence of sun. So what it's speaking of? This pitcher with the water speaks of the individualities with the mind, where the sun is being reflected. All our knowledge is nothing but the reflection. As long as the reflection is there, I have the knowledge. If there is no reflection, all the picture has been broken. What is, I can never speak of. It is as it is. There is an existence that Sat Swarupata we can never deny, on which everything has been projected. But what it is, I can never say. So that's the idea, that He is beyond form and formlessness. As long as we are trying to relate to the ultimate reality with mind, then the question of form and formlessness, everything comes. But through spiritual practice, there is a state when you go beyond the mind. And there the question of God with form and formless, nothing arises. That you are that. The ultimate subject can never be known. The Drigdrishya Viveka starts with that. With the eyes I see the world. But can I see the eyes with the eyes? No. So similarly, how I am aware of my eyes? Because of the mind. What I see with my eyes is again perceived by the mind. As the mind is behind there, the mind is perceiving the eyes. Am I aware of the mind? Yes, I am aware of the mind. Because there must be this. That way, through analysis, I can say as I am aware of my thoughts in my mind, so the mind cannot be the ultimate subject. I know the existence of my eyes with my mind. The eyes cannot see itself, but it can see the objects. But how to know about the existence of the eyes? Behind the eyes, the mind is there. Do I know the thoughts of the mind? Yes. Then there must be something beyond the mind. Who is observing the mind? Who is that? That I can never say. Because if I go on retracing and saying that behind the mind there must be another mind who is observing this mind, this will lead to infinite regress. That's a fault in the logic. There will be no end to it. At last, I have to end somewhere where I say he is the subject, and that can never be known. If the subject is known, it becomes an object. So when you are one with the subject, it can never be known. So that's the state which is beyond form and formlessness. The subject can never be objectified. For the mind, with analysis, I can say, oh, God is with form. And this form can take you to the state of formlessness. All those things with the mind, by analyzing, I can say. But when you're in that state, it is impossible to state. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying, he is form, he is formless too. Further, he is beyond both form and formlessness. No one can limit him. Rakhal's father was sitting in the room. At that time, Rakhal was staying with the master. After his mother's death, his father had married a second time. Now and then, he came to Dakshineshwar because of Rakhal's being there. He did not raise much objection to his sons living with the master. Being a wealthy man of the world, he was always involved in litigation. There were lawyers and deputy magistrates among Sri Ramakrishna's visitors. Rakhal's father found it profitable to cultivate their acquaintance, since he expected to be benefited by their counsels in worldly matters. Now and then the master cast a glance at Rakhal's father. It was his cherished desire that Rakhal should live with him permanently at Dakshineshwar. Master to Rakhal's father and the devotees. Ah, what a nice character Rakhal has developed. Look at his face, and every now and then you will notice his lips moving. Inwardly he repeats the name of God, and so his lips move. So Sri Ramakrishna wants that Rakhal should stay with him. So now you will find the reason. That when a man of realization always wants the company of the devotees, the like-minded people. When they come down to the world of reality, they find it very difficult to stay with worldly people. So when he finds a person with spiritual inclination, that's the company with which he wants to stay. We will find that in some other context it's mentioned. Seeing the movement of the lips of Rakhal, Sri Ramakrishna used to go into samadhi. Because his mind was just like a matchstick, a little indication that someone is contemplating on the divine. That was sufficient. It acts like a spark. Immediately it will take him to realization. In the life of Ramakrishna, we find that very small things used to take him to samadhi. One day, one man closed the umbrella in his presence. Immediately, Ramakrishna went into samadhi. And when he came back from samadhi, what he told was interesting. That seeing the man closing the umbrella, immediately the thought came, that's the way the scattered mind has to be just withdrawn and focused to the thought of God. Just thinking of that, his mind went into samadhi. He went to the zoo. The devotees took him to the zoo just to have some entertainment, recreation. And the first animal Sri Ramakrishna saw was a lion. And seeing the lion, he went into such a deep samadhi that he had to be brought back. They couldn't go around the zoo. Why he went into samadhi? Again, the same reason. That seeing the lion, immediately the thought came that the lion is the Vahana, the carrier of Mother Durga. Lion, Durga, thought of Durga, samadhi. You will find in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the same thing. One day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was passing by a village, and someone told the clay of this village is used to prepare the coal. It's a drum, a type of drum, whose body is made of the clay. That clay is a special type of clay. That village clay is used to prepare that coal. Hearing that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into samadhi. That clay, coal is used for kirtana. Kirtana means the thought of God, samadhi. It's a wonderful thing. Sri Ramakrishna one day was passing through the roads of Calcutta, and he saw an English boy. That was a British government, it was a British rule that time. We all know that. And he saw a young boy standing, reclining the pillar. He was a small English boy. He was just leaning against a pillar with his hands folded and one leg crossed over the other. Ramakrishna went into Samadhi. Why? When he came back from Samadhi, he is relating that immediately that boy enkindled in his mind the thought of Krishna. The Krishna is Tribhanga. That one foot is crossed over the other. With the two hands he is holding the flute, and the hips are a bit bent. So Tribhanga. That boy was leaning against the pillar, so the hip was bent, one leg was crossed over the other, the second bent, and the hands were folded, the third bent. Tribhanga, Krishna, Samadhi. So this wonderful thing you will find. Just a little spark is required. The thought takes in immediately. So now you will understand that why Sri Ramakrishna is relating that Rakhal should stay. That he has developed the spiritual temperament. Seeing his lips movement that takes his mind immediately to the higher realm of spiritual consciousness. So he wants this type of people to be always staying with him. Because when he has to bring his mind down from that realm of the absolute, because he is avatar. He is a divine incarnation. His birth is to show man way out in this world from suffering. So if he merges in Samadhi, this purpose won't be served. So he has to come down again and again to this realm plane. But when he comes down, he needs the company of those who are also very spiritually evolved, who has cleansed their mind, who are pure. So that's why we find Sri Ramakrishna is always eager to have the company of these young boys who have developed this tremendous spiritual fervor. And what these young boys are, Sri Ramakrishna says a wonderful story. Again, Sri Ramakrishna's these stories and parables are wonderful. What he says, the parable of the Homer bird. It's a mythological bird. It's not a real bird, but it is a mythological bird. But that bird is something very interesting. It speaks of those who are ever free. Homer bird. What it is? The youngsters like him, means like Rakhal, belong to the class of ever perfect. They are born with God consciousness. No sooner do they grow a little older than they realize the danger of coming in contact with the world. There is the parable of the Homer bird in the Vedas. The bird lives high up in the sky and never descends to earth. It lays its eggs in the sky and the egg begins to fall. But the bird lives in such a high region that the egg hatches while falling. The fledgling comes out and continues to fall, but it is still so high that while falling it grows wings and its eyes open. Then the young bird perceives that it is dashing down towards the earth and will be instantly killed. The moment it sees the ground, it turns and shoots up towards its mother in the sky. Then its one goal is to reach its mother. Youngsters like Rakhal are like that bird. From their very childhood, they are afraid of the world. And their one thought is how to reach the mother, how to realize God. The story of Shukadeva, the same thing. The moment he was born, he was running. That the world shouldn't in any way taint him. Going just beyond this, Vyasa was running after him. At last he realized that after whom I am running. He was perfectly sinless. He had to come back just immediately after birth. So if you read the life of Shukadeva, the same idea is here we find. The moment they are born, they come with that tremendous sanskar of detachment. They immediately just have such a dispassion that they are afraid, scared of this world. They immediately try to relate to the divine. Go up, means going up to the mother means to be in again communion with the divine. The source from where they came, they again want to go to that source. They know, otherwise the world is going to kill them. In spiritual sense, it is like killing them, to be merged in the worldliness. So that's what this idea we find even in the Yoga Sutra. They say that when a person will attain spiritual perfection through all the spiritual practices which has been spoken of in the scriptures. So there is no as such a definite time. Tivra Sangveganam Asanna. If you have an intense yearning, it is asanna, it's just waiting for you. So these youngsters, because of their past samskaras, are born with the Tivra Sangvega, tremendous earnestness, yearning to attain the spiritual illumination. So that's why we find for them, they did not have to go through this worldly experience. Before they touch the world, they immediately start flying up and up, so that they can again reach the source from where they have came. So that's the idea which we find through this story. You may ask, how is it possible for these boys born of worldly parents and living among the worldly minded to develop such knowledge and devotion? It can be explained. If a pea falls into a heap of dung, it germinates into a pea plant nonetheless. The peas that grow on that plant serve many useful purposes. But it was sown in dung. Will it produce another kind of plant? So if we have that deep ingrained samskara, then the environment cannot affect us. The environment do affect us. Environment has a great role to play in building our lives. But if we have a tremendous intensity yearning, then the environment is in no way a detrimental factor. After all, as a human being, even in the modern psychology they say that a child should have resilience. Why? That resilience, the nowadays we speak or say hear so much of resilience. Why? That if you are resilient, the same challenging situation with which the others might have developed a defeatist attitude. For one who is resilient, the same challenge, the same crisis can act as a springboard to really excel in life. So the external circumstances do have a great role to play. But again, it's not that it's for all that same, the circumstances is going to be detrimental. In psychology, there's so many experiments that shows that if you give some challenge, it has been found that 80% will be resorting to some defeatist attitude. They have this, what they call is a learned helplessness. They learn that they are helpless, and that lead to defeatist attitude. They become what you said is totally pessimistic. Majority are that, but a few are there who takes that challenge as the springboard to really excel in life. Those are the optimistics. So circumstances do play a great role in building our life, but those who have that intense yearning, those few chosen ones, you can say, those few souls who are highly evolved, they are the one for whom the same circumstances, instead of becoming a detrimental factor, becomes the opportunity to really flourish in life, because they already have the good samskaras. And that's the example which Sri Ramakrishna is giving, like a pea plant. The dung acts as the fertilizer. The dung, which I may think as something which is something defiled, which is something very dirty, but that acts as a fertilizer for the pea seed. That speaks as what the seed speaks of, the inherent tendencies. Whatever is inherent, that has to come up, that has to manifest. So whatever may be the circumstances. So that's not only what that may be circumstances. Actually, the detrimental circumstances become a more accelerating factor. So here the heap of dung acts as a fertilizer. So similarly, the so-called heap of dung of the world acts as a fertilizer. They act as the factor which helps to really excel in life. They struggle against it with a full resilience and evolve much faster in spiritual life. So that's the idea which Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that though they may be born in a worldly family, but these few ones who have this intense yearning, that same circumstances helps them to use that circumstance as a springboard and evolve spiritually. So that's how Sri Ramakrishna, but these words might have hurt the father of Rakhal. Then what? Because if Rakhal is a pea seed, then it indicates what you have understand. But Ramakrishna never wanted to hurt anyone. So the next something he will be saying, which is very interesting. So that today the time is almost over. We will take that part again in the next class. That immediately after saying this, Sri Ramakrishna, as if to pacify Rakhal's father, is saying something very interesting. That's a bit funny indeed, but that we will take. That's a bit interesting conversation that we will again take up in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.